Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story today features a neighbor so entitled he tried to turn a city street into his personal driveway. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. My neighbor put up a stolen tow-away zone sign on a public street. The tow company is not happy. We have an interesting neighbor who lives way down the street. In addition to the very political signs on his house, he also flies the Confederate battle flag on both sides of his driveway. He also posted a sign from a local tow company on a tree in his front yard that anyone parking there will be towed. The important part of this is this neighborhood is not in an HOA. The streets are city-owned, not private, so he doesn't have the authority to have anyone towed from in front of his house. If someone parks in his driveway, that's a different story. But he can't control who parks in front of his house. If his house was closer to mine, it's around the corner and about 15 houses away, I'd be spending a lot of time out on my front porch with a cold drink and a bowl of popcorn waiting for the entertainment when he tries to get someone's car hauled off. Either the tow company will refuse, since it's a public street, and they'll probably confiscate their sign since he shouldn't have it anyway. If they're crazy enough to tow, there will probably be cops called for a stolen car, or the cops will be called when he tries to get the car yanked and tempers flare. Any of those would not be a good outcome for him. Edit. I called the tow company, and they were very interested in this. He absolutely does not have permission from the tow company. The lady I talked to said they would never do this and have no idea how he got the sign. She laughed when I suggested that they contact the companies that they contract and see who's missing a sign. This will be taken care of as soon as the manager arrives on Monday. I'd love to be a fly on the wall to hear that conversation. Update. They were exceedingly annoyed that he had heisted one of their signs. Yes, he did steal it from somewhere. They did not give it to him. Unfortunately, the tree that the sign is screwed to is far enough into his property that the tow company cannot reach to remove it without going on his private property. The cops aren't going to come out just to try to force him to cough up the sign, so it's a standoff there. The tow company's checking with the folks that they're contracted with to find out where the sign was stolen from. Apparently, they've had run-ins with this jerk before, and he is absolutely on their crap list. If he does have the nerve to call for a tow, I'd love to be sitting there with a bowl of popcorn to watch the entertainment. He's basically trying to reserve the spot in front of his house for his own pickup, which also flies the battle flag and has very bigoted stickers all over it. I guess the only upside is that he freely tells everyone what an entitled, bigoted wanker he is so that we don't have to guess. I really feel for the folks who live right next door to him or across the street. He must be a really interesting neighbor. The fact that he stole the tow company's sign is the kind of detail that makes the story. It's no longer just about a guy with bad politics and a sense of entitlement. It's about a guy who's so committed to his fictional authority that he committed a real-world crime to prop it up. He's not just a wannabe dictator of a public street, he's a petty thief. And our next story. Won't let me give you a warning? Stinks to be you. This happened about a week and a half ago. I was taking a walk in a small park that has a wooded area in and a few walking trails. I decided I wanted to take the shortest path as it was getting late. About halfway through the path, I saw a skunk in the middle of the path, and I'm sure, based on the title, most people already know where this is going. I turned around and decided it was not worth it to proceed further, and approximately halfway was enough. I exited the path the same way I entered, and as I was entering, I saw an old teacher of mine from high school. Let's call her Miss Samantha. Not her real name. Miss Samantha was a teacher that went out of her way to nitpick everything I did in her class in high school. Note it's been almost 12 years since I last saw her and 13 since I was in her class. Anyway, with the backstory aside, I went up to greet her and said, "Hello, Miss Samantha. How have you been?" "Hi, I'm trying to take my daily walk down shortest path. Don't bother me." "I wouldn't." "You said hello. This conversation's over until I get back from my walk, or you can walk with me and we can catch up." "I just want to warn..." "This conversation is over for now. Wait until I finish my walk and we can catch up. Understand, OP?" At this point, I think for a moment. I'm not the type of person who would normally just let someone walk into a potential skunking, but she was just rude to me twice and did nitpick everything I did in high school, so I chose to say nothing and just took a seat at the bench nearby. See, was that so hard? We don't need to be a know-it-all. That was your issue back as a student. And Miss Samantha went down that path. As she did, I whipped out my phone and texted my parents that I'd be heading back to my childhood home a bit late. We'll help them with the dog later, but eat dinner without me. I'll be here for a bit longer. One thing to take into account is that the entrance and exit for the shortest path we've exit parallel to each other. The entrance is on one side of the bench I sat at, and the other side was the exit. In this case, entrance behind, exit in front, so family can wait on the bench and see their relatives exit. Normally, I knew I'd see her on the way out if she'd complete the whole route, but in this case, I had a feeling I'd smell her coming out first, knowing her attitude. Sadly, my instincts were spot on. As I'm on my phone playing a few games, I heard Miss Samantha's voice vaguely in the background, and my thought at the time was, oh no, she ran into the skunk, here we go. And I do not joke that just as I finished my thought, I heard the sound of a woman yell, maybe a scream. I couldn't really make that out 100%, but the wind was blowing my way, so I was downwind of the path, the skunk and her, so it wasn't long before I could smell what happened. Miss Samantha did eventually come out from the path's exit, and the smell she was emitting was awful. It reminded me a bit of raw horseradish getting peeled, as it was really eye-watering. Ugh, she moaned. I tried to warn you about that skunk. I figured it out when I got sprayed. You know I'd react like that, didn't you? I shrugged. I wagered a guess, yeah. By the way, mind taking a few steps downwind so it's easier to talk? After that, she gave me her phone number and asked me to contact her when I planned to come back. She hoped it wouldn't be when she was still reeking in skunk odor. As I said at the beginning of this tale, it's been a week and a half. She still has some lingering skunk smell. I found out that up until the moment she was doing okay as well, but she also told me she got sprayed twice. When I asked her why she didn't turn back after being sprayed the first time, she told me if she already got sprayed and was going to smell like skunk anyway, she wanted to complete her walk. A fun little anecdote is that after everything, she admitted she was being petty, and when I told her I still wanted to study the foreign language she taught and took some classes in college, she told me that if I ever wanted to practice, to let her know, and she'll do it without the pettiness this time. To be honest, I think the skunking humbled her quite a bit, and hopefully she won't be forced to deal with residual linger odor much longer. But anyway, thanks for reading. You tried 3 times to help. She hit you with teacher voice attitude, and then karma sprayed her twice for good measure. The raw horseradish description killed me. Maybe she finally learned that listening's free, while arrogance costs about 2 weeks of tomato juice baths. And our second story. He blamed the system for his missing raises. The system was me. This happened about 20 years ago, back when I worked for a major magazine publisher. One of those companies that owned a little bit of everything: lifestyle, travel, business, fashion, even one about pets. Each department operated like its own mini company, but all of them funneled up through the same upper management, which is where I came in. My job wasn't glamorous. I handled the budget spreadsheets for roughly 25 different magazines. It was tedious, repetitive work, the kind of thing that would put most people to sleep after 10 minutes. But I was pretty good with Excel, so it became my kingdom. Unfortunately, my direct boss and his boss weren't exactly spreadsheet savvy. My boss's boss was at least polite about it. He was old school, preferred paper ledgers and red pens, and always thanked me for making those blasted columns balance. My immediate boss, however, was a nightmare. He was the kind of manager who thought yelling made him sound important. He micromanaged everything, took credit for other people's work, and had this uncanny ability to make any conversation about how brilliant he was. He'd stroll past my desk, drop off a pile of budget updates, and say things like, "Make it pretty for the higher-ups." You know how numbers make them nervous. The thing that really got to me was that he didn't just lack Excel skills, he refused to learn them. He treated it like some kind of badge of honor that he could manage without knowing how formulas worked. Meanwhile, I was spending hours fixing mistakes that came directly from his creative input. Eventually, I got sick of it. I realized that almost all the spreadsheets followed the same structure, same column, same calculation, same process, so I started automating them. I built templates that handled all the math automatically. Once I finished setting up the macros, it turned a multi-day task into something I could run in about 15 minutes. When my boss saw it, he took all the credit, walked right into my director's office, and presented my automated budget system as his own streamlined process. I just sat there watching him grin like a Cheshire cat while my work made him look good. So I decided if he was going to benefit from my work, I'd make sure there was one little line in there that didn't benefit too much. See, one of the columns in the budget spreadsheets was salaries and raises. Normally, you'd plug in projected raises for the upcoming fiscal year, and the formulas would update totals accordingly. Well, I added one small, easily overlooked line of VBA code that automatically reset his salary cell to its current value every time the spreadsheet recalculated. No matter how many times he tried to sneak in a raise for himself, it would revert to his old pay before the file was saved or sent to HR. It wasn't malicious enough to get me in trouble, it just made sure his attempted adjustments never actually registered. Everyone else's raises and numbers worked fine, but his locked in place. For months, I'd hear him complaining about how the finance team must be messing up his raise requests. He'd bark at HR, send angry emails, and blame the system for not updating properly. Meanwhile, I'd sit quietly in my cubicle, double-checking everyone else's numbers and pretending to be sympathetic. "I don't get it," he grumbled once, pacing behind me. "Every time I update the spreadsheet, it just reverts. Maybe I'm cursed." "Maybe it's Excel," I said with a straight face. "It can be finicky if you don't understand how the formulas interact." Eventually, he gave up trying to fix it himself and started sending his edits to me again. I'd smile, open the file, and say, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." And I did, exactly as written. About 6 months later, karma caught up with him. Turns out he'd gotten into a fist fight with another employee. Apparently, the argument started because he accused the guy of undermining him in front of the director. HR didn't take long to escort him out of the building. My boss's boss called me into his office later that week. "I'm guessing you'll be running the budget yourself for now," he said, handing me a stack of files. "And between you and me, that might be for the best." I just nodded, trying not to smile too hard. I never felt bad about that little piece of code. If anything, it felt poetic. A quiet, harmless form of justice. The man who constantly took credit for other people's work never saw that the one thing he thought he was controlling was actually controlling him. Knowing that Excel itself had the final say felt like the most satisfying revenge of all. This is what happens when arrogance meets automation. You built a silent little trap that didn't hurt anyone, it just prevented theft disguised as self-promotion. He wanted to control the spreadsheet. Instead, the spreadsheet controlled him. Efficiency with a side of justice. And our last story. Revenge on the neighbor from hell. When my husband and I bought our first home together, we were so excited. Brand new chapter, quiet neighborhood, a yard big enough for cookouts. But excitement faded fast once we met our next-door neighbor, Travis. Within a week, it became clear Travis thought he was the self-appointed king of the block. The man had a voice like a foghorn and an ego to match. The lot between our houses was technically city-owned at the time, an empty, grassy patch where kids sometimes played, but Travis treated it like his personal kingdom. He had 4 rusted-out cars sitting there, all half-covered with tarps, and he'd let his dog roam around to do its business anywhere it pleased. No leash, no cleanup, no shame. The first time our contractor parked his truck there to unload materials for our fence, Travis stormed out like we'd committed a crime. "Hey, you can't park there. That's my lot." Our contractor looked at me, confused. I said, "It's not your lot, it's city property." Travis crossed his arms. "Well, I maintain it, so that makes it mine." Maintain it? The grass was knee-high and filled with car parts, but whatever. I didn't want to start a war my first week living there, so we ignored him. Big mistake. Over the next few weeks, he got worse. Loud music at all hours, blasting old rock anthems at 2 a.m., and his dog, a large shepherd mix, kept wandering onto our driveway to bark at us. One day, I was gardening and stepped right into a pile of his maintenance. That was it. Then one morning, my husband opened the mailbox and found a letter from the city. It said the vacant lot next door was available for purchase. First come, first served to adjacent homeowners. We looked at each other, grinned, and said the same thing. Let's buy it. It took a few weeks, but when the paperwork cleared, that little strip of land officially became ours. Travis didn't even know until the surveyor showed up to mark the property lines. He came storming over, red-faced and sweating. "What's all this?" he demanded. My husband smiled. "Just getting our lot measured." "Your lot?" "Yeah," I said sweetly. "We bought it. It's ours now." You could almost see the steam coming out of his ears. He stomped away without another word, but within a day, his dog was back, pooping right in the middle of our new land like he was leaving a message. Then he parked one of his junk cars even farther onto it, like he was daring us to do something. So I did. First, I called animal control. They gave him a warning. 2 days later, the dog was back again, and so was animal control, this time with a citation. Then I called the city about the abandoned car. Since it was now on private property without permission, it was considered trespassing. The tow truck showed up the next morning, and Travis came running out of his house yelling, "Hey, you can't tow that. It's on my land." The officer just pointed at the paperwork taped to the windshield. "No, sir, it's on her land. You'll have to take it up with her." He turned to me furious. "What is it now, huh? First the dog, now the car? What's your problem?" I smiled. "My problem? You trespassing, your dog trespassing, and your noise keeping half the neighborhood awake. But don't worry, I'm handling it." That week, I called the cops 3 more times for noise complaints. Every time, he'd get a visit and a warning. By the 4th call, the officer told him if he didn't turn it down by 10 p.m., he'd be fined. That's when the transformation happened. The dog's now on a leash, the junk is gone, and every night at exactly 9:59, his music shuts off mid-song like someone flipped a switch. Owning that lot might have cost us a bit, but watching him realize he can't boss us around anymore, worth every penny. Most people snap when they get a neighbor like Travis, the noise, the junk, the arrogance, but you played the long game. The moment that city letter hit your mailbox, you didn't just buy a strip of grass, you bought leverage. Every complaint he ever brushed off suddenly came with a price tag. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.